I'm going to start with chat. So chat, a couple of things that you've done that that light you up, that are creativity boosters. And while we're preparing for that, or while you're typing that into the comments, I'd like to share a creative pyramid, a graph with you, a chart, if you will. This is a chart conversations with my mentors, with my peers in the creative community, and I think there's something that's very beautiful in the most simple, and that is the relationship of your mindset and your habits to your goals, because we use those things almost interchangeably. And team, maybe you could put that up on the screen here. The relationship between mindset, habits, and goals. So if you don't see that, it is on page 106. I think we've got it there. So we talked a lot about what our goals are. That's the imagination part last week. We're sort of I'm trying to frame this conversation like it's only the things that you do on a regular basis that will allow you to reach those goals. And at the bottom of this pyramid is what I consider the most important part, and that is, what's your headspace? Because having noticed when I'm successful and not successful is, and tracked that for years, and then done the same with many of my peers for the world's top performers in whatever area discipline they chose to focus on, the number one thing that set them apart was their mindset. And the number two thing was their habits. They were relentless about their habits. And that's why I talk about, creativity being a daily practice rather than something that you do in fits and spurts. I like the sit down and get to work. But, if you think about the relationship here, of course, it makes tons of sense. But I hope to have this be so simple in your mind that it's intuitive, that it's you don't have to operate like this on a regular basis, or that you don't have to think about this on a regular basis, that it's just ingrained in your DNA. And this is part of why I like tracking things. This is part of why I like writing things down. To me, the foundation of all of this stuff is mindset, the series of behaviors that we track every day. It's only through thing one and thing two that you achieve thing three, which is your goals. So I would love to, I'll go to someone on the Zoom call in just a second. Tell me 1, 2, or 3 things that are creativity boosters for you that you like to do on some sort of a regular, consistent basis, whether it's daily or weekly. I'm looking in the chat. Cleaning. Isabella says cleaning her desk. Let's see here. Andy's talking about a very specific photo that he goes out to make. Oh man, now they're coming in too fast for me to read. Elsevier talks about surrounding environment with nice music. Let's go to the Zoom call here. Hands up, folks, if you want to volunteer a couple of creative boosters. All right. We got Heather. Let's see. Heather, I'm going to unmute you. I think I'm doing that right. I asked you to unmute there, Heather. There you go. Go for it. Oop, you muted again, Heather. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. Okay. Tell us a couple of things that are creativity boosters that you do.
This is new since I started book club. I sent you a picture of my paint by numbers, and I've been journaling every day. The painting is just relaxation, but it's just making room to try to relax and de-stress.
It's a fantastic, things that have multiple positive effects on us, right? That are honing a craft, whether it's writing, and things that we also find to nourish us or replenish us rather than drain us. That's great. Thank you for sharing, Heather. Anybody else in this text Zoom? Let's see. Let's go to Jen. I'm going to unmute you, Jen. Give us a couple. Jenn Aiken.
Can you hear me?
You sound great.
Oh, great. I think for me, things like what we're doing now, collaboration is infectious, right? So it kind of bouncing the ideas and that energy And then the second thing I like to do is any type of meditation where they talk about your dharma and what is your authentic voice, and then how you can implement that. So that's kind of the things that get me jazzed. And I love poetry and poetry slams because it's just, again, collaborative and pretty cool.
Right. It's so what I heard things like community, right? Whether it's at a poetry slam or you're getting together physically or here digitally. These are things where, honestly, this is why we're doing the book club, because I know the power of community. And notice that that is not in my list of 10 things, 10 habits that I track, because I made a career out of community. I made a career out of writing and publishing and sharing and building Creative Live. Like, that is 100% community. So it's no surprise, Jenn, that again, this is a really common thread, and it's something that I had to, you think of the videos that I made, the other 50% of it's not intuitive to build community for so many people. This, of course, will come back into play in, week 5 in the final section of the book. But it's important to think of that as a habit that you can build through showing up at places like this, whether it's daily or weekly. Great. I appreciate you volunteering. And let's take, I'm going to take one more from the comments here in chat, and then I'll go back to Zoom. Co-creator Marcia says 2 things. She has a vision wall that she reviews every day. And she's got 3 things: cleaning her desk, which has already been said, and walking in nature. Now, it's interesting to me that something as disconnected from the creative process, walking in nature, for example, how it can be a habit that gives us juice. I don't know about you all, but one of the things that I found so hard about the beginning of the pandemic was I was just sitting at home attached to my screen, and that was all I did. I woke up in violation of all of my own philosophies about creativity. I rolled out of bed into my phone or my laptop. I was connected to my team basically for 16 or 17 hours. And then I missed the most simple things in life, which is like connecting to my partner, connecting to the world. And in a world where it's dangerous to be outside, that was confounded now through social distancing and other safe practices. The ability to connect and remember that we're a part of something bigger is a very rejuvenative thing. So again, I love hearing that that's a booster. And I'm going to go right back to the Zoom call now and look for one other folk to raise their hand and share some creativity boosters with us. Okay. So many hands. It's very hard. I'm going to do 2. I'm going to go to Luisa Lopez first, and then I'm going to go to Mike Galvez. Go ahead, Luisa.
Hi. Yes. The first thing I like to do is make my bed, because it's a visual, like, okay, I got a task accomplished. And then immediately I will meditate for about 30 minutes, and then I'll walk the stairs for 30. And then I have coffee and I'm good. I'm ready to go.
I love that they're like you've got your routine, and that's part of what I'm asking you to build. And before I go to Mike, just remember, like, none of these things actually have anything to do with your craft yet. This is just setting up. This is why what I like, I go back to the creative pyramid, right? Mindset is a lot of these things are orienting us for the day, orienting us around our big vision, orienting us to be able to get to work. And it's almost like this foundation of self-care up here. Thanks for putting that back on the screen, team. Thank you for sharing that, Luisa. And then we're going to go to Mike Galvez. I'm going to unmute you right here, bud. Go for it.
All right. So I like to turn on the tunes first thing in the morning. It's a big thing for me. And I go on a walk with my wife every morning. That's another must do every single day. We've been doing it since COVID started. We have a pretty quiet neighborhood, so we do that every morning. And lately I've noticed that another big booster for me is getting on calls with friends that have, similar interests in crafts that they're working on, things that they're working on, very similar to the whole collaboration thing that Jenn was talking about.
Yeah. It's easy for us to pass over, these foundational things like connection. But as a reminder, we're social animals, right? That is part of why you got yourself into the position you did without having pursued your goal right out of the gates. Most people that I know, we wandered in the woods for a long time, or we went down the path that other people dictated for us. And again, that's okay. What we're focused on now is getting right back to what it is that we love. We imagined what's possible. Now we're setting up ourselves for success. Now, a lot of these things are habits that, as I or building the mindset such that if we're in the right headspace, we've imagined what we want as possible. We've now created a series of behaviors. When we're talking about these overall generic creativity boosters like sleep, like exercise, like music, like whatever, there are some that are very, very, very personal, right? And maybe that's a choice in music, or it's a choice in the space that you create for yourself if you can. Right now, one of you might be saying, yeah, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 kids and it's really hard to create space. Great. Well, what can you do? Not these headphones, but they're not within arm's reach of me right now. But one of my best investments, and I think I said this in the book, was a pair of noise canceling headphones. That is to just turn this thing, noise goes away, and to be able to, in a loud place, backstage before I go on somewhere, or when I'm trying to, if you're commuting, the ability to focus on your craft and sketch something without having all these other inputs was really huge for me. So I don't want to be prescriptive. That's why I'm asking for a variety from you all, and why I listed so many in the book. I think thinking about you, the distinct person, is really important. And for me, the headphone things, I'd never heard anybody talk about this. And to this day, if I'm about to go speak in front of 5,000 people in a theater, I'm backstage with noise canceling headphones on. So I'm not trying to be prescriptive, but I know that there are things that are particular to you, weird little quirks, that if you did those things, they would help, they would contribute to your success. And still notice a lot of these, this is just basic mindset. And these are simple habits, none of which have anything to do with your craft. This is the part of the design thing that was the most shocking to me, was that there's so many of these things that are foundational and fundamental. The idea that if you want to be a photographer, you have to put in 10,000 hours behind the camera lens, that's not really a surprise. What I did find to be a surprise was all this other stuff. So if you've got some of these basic ones that I would file under human, like the ability to get sleep and whatnot, then there's some specific ones for you. Like for me, it was the noise canceling headphones, to be able to quiet out, like literally quiet out the noise. Though that was a big one. And then of course there's all of the stuff around craft. And with respect to that, I like to think about, how are you spending your money and your time? Are you actually spending your money and your time doing the thing that you said you want to do? Or are you in the camp that I threatened about at the beginning of this thing, like you don't want to fall into just perpetually planning? So, and I think this idea of prioritizing work, prioritizing now that we've established a rationale for and a set of behaviors to cultivate a strong mindset and things that will get us closer to what it is that we want to be in the world. Now, I would like us to focus and prioritize the work. All right. Be intentional. Be very intentional. Now, many of you saw the prompt that I put out on Instagram. And if you're new to the party here, or you may have slipped this part, make sure you're following me on IG, because I'm putting out some prompts there, either in stories or the gallery, and turn notifications on. That way you won't miss them. But the prompt that I'd set out was to create anything with intention over the course of the 24-hour period. And what I mean by intention is, I'll just give you some examples of things that people shared with me. I'm going to take a portrait of my son. And so that is someone saying, okay, great. What am I going to do over the next 24 hours? I'm going to take a picture of my kid. Now, whether you call it a portrait of my son or a picture of my kid, the fact, like, I'm not actually judging the output. I'm not even talking about the quality of the photograph. I'm not talking about, was it big enough or small enough? It was something with intention. And this is what the trap that so many of us fall into is, we've done all of the things and then go back to Jeanette. It's like, The thing that was blocking me was actually just sitting down and doing the work. So the next step in today's lesson, if there's 3 topics, what gets results is consistent practice. 2, prioritizing the work. I would love to see show of hands or maybe a text in the chat of how many of you are prioritizing your work. And I don't let's just do a show of hands real quick here. Show of hands, who is prioritizing their work on a regular basis? I appreciate you all for being honest. Yeah, Mike's given us this one a little bit, and I'm seeing some chats come in from the folks that aren't on the Zoom call. I'm guessing it's around 50%. And for those 50% that are doing it, good job, but beware. There are going to be times where you're not in a position to raise your hand. And for the folks who are not raising your hand right now, like Amanda, I didn't see you, Amanda Mark Designs, I didn't see you raise your hand. And that's okay, because that's what you're doing right here. You're here to get a little bit of help. But what I want, if you did not raise your hand or you did not chat me, yep, Jason, I'm creating every day. I want your homework is the same homework that I gave you last week, which is to create something, anything in the next 24 hours. Now, I would suggest you set yourself up for success. Don't make it too big. Don't make it too scary. Don't make it too hairy. And I don't even care what the thing is. I do know that you've decided what some of your goals are, and that there is one thing that you could do that would get you closer to that goal, even if it was just jot down. Like, what you're creating is you're creating a roadmap. You're taking the first step. You're painting. You're gessoing the canvas. There's an infinite number of things that you could be doing that would get you closer than you are right now to your goal. And if you didn't raise your hand, do one thing in the next 24 hours. It's a weekend. You've got time. You can make time. You can stay up late. You can get up early. I'm looking at you. Do this for me, and you will find that it's probably easier than you think. Okay. Sorry, I've got a lot of windows open here. Let's see. All right. In intending what we want to create, and by doing so, I mean, just, it's like, you can't say like, oh yeah, I took a picture at some point today. That checks the box. The thing that's missing with that is the planning, the saying, I'm going to do this, and then doing it. And part of the challenge that I see with just doing whatever is this concept of being busy. Now, to be busy doesn't actually mean effective. And there are so many busybodies out there in the world. And I myself, I share vulnerably in the book, when I first declared that I was going to be a photographer, I just ran around doing all kinds of things, but I wasn't actually landing jobs. I wasn't building my portfolio. I wasn't actually developing myself into the creator that I had envisioned. And what I did instead is just wake up and did stuff. And so what was missing there was intention. And yet at the end of every day, I had said to my friends and myself, oh my gosh, you were so busy all day. But you know what? I wasn't getting anywhere. And if you remember from this part of the book, a hamster on a wheel is busy, right? She might just be moving her feet and it feels good because they're doing a lot of stuff. But if you're not sort of on a trajectory with intention to get somewhere, you're certainly not being effective. So I would ask you to do an audit of your own self. And I'm going to ask you to do a couple of audits here in a second. It's like, are you being effective or are you being busy? And when I started, doing those audits, I was woefully disappointed. But, that recognition of what truth was for me was a very, very powerful thing in putting me in the right direction. I also want to underscore this idea of being urgent versus important. I wished I had seen this chart way earlier in my life. It was quite late in my life, honestly, that I saw it. Page 131. And I'm going to let my team put that up on the screen now. It's on page 131. Check that out. Now, I'm just going to read something there. I'm going to go to the Zoom call in just a second and ask for something that you do that is urgent. Sorry, it is not urgent, but important to you. Not urgent, but important to you. Think about that for just a second. I'm going to read a little blurb here. These 4 rectangles can change your life. I really wish someone had shown me this diagram a decade ago. Of course, we need to tackle important and urgent tasks right away. That is like, the house is flooding. We need to tackle that right away. Of course. But it's essential that we carve out time for the important and not urgent activities in our lives. Otherwise, we will always be occupied with unimportant tasks. This is a little bit of a harder question, but I'm wondering if anybody in the in-studio audience has an example of something that is not urgent, as in it's not your hair is on fire, but is very important that you do, whether it's reading or working on the skill that you feel is required to get you where you want to be. I'm going to go to 2 folks. I'd like to hear from Terry Pruitt and from Yev. All right, I'll start out with Terry, and Yev, I'll ask you to share in just a second as well. Okay, Terry, what's something that is in where the quadrant that is the best stuff in life, something that's important and not urgent?
I love candy making, but not eating the candy that I make, but sharing.
Oh, we have different
Well,
roles in life.
I should say. But sharing it with friends. So in this COVID situation, I've been prioritizing doing that, making candy, and then making care packages for friends and family and shipping them and sharing them.
Right. There's nothing that says, oh my gosh, you have to do this today, right now, hurry up, got to do it. But something that's clearly very important to you, given that's part of your craft and presumably how you make others feel when you give them these care packages. Important, but not urgent. Yev, are you willing to share something with us? Is it Eve or
Cooking.
is it Yev?
Yev or Yevany.
Yeah.
Yev.
Okay. It's cooking.
Yeah. Cause
Tell us more.
I find cooking to be creative, and being able to just use different ingredients, and it helps me to I feel like I've created something for someone to enjoy, and
I don't know
I find it's
if you
important.
noticed. Oh, sorry, I talked over you there. There's a little delay. Go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
No, I was just saying that, cooking and using different ingredients to create something that I enjoy, others enjoying, sharing it with them, that's really important to me. It's part of my whole bigger vision. So we're also
great. That was my next question. What is your bigger vision so we can understand the relationship between cooking and your bigger vision?
Gathering people together, creating space, healing spaces, and I find that food and community helps facilitate that.
Absolutely. The table is one of the most innovative inventions of the last 100,000 years, right? The ability to convene people. And what I loved is that it would be very easy for anyone to say, wait a minute, well, food, yeah, I guess food's important because we need sustenance, but you talked about it as a creative act. And it was very clear that if creating spaces and convening people is the core mission, then there's some other aspects of it that you need to, provide something that cultivates the space. You need to provide something that's going to ground people in this space. And so it's really nice to see that it something as daily as food can be the thing that you find critically important for this one precious life or for your craft, the thing that you've imagined for yourself. And it could be argued that it's not urgent that you make good food, because if you're at my house and you turn upside down a bag of chips into a bowl, that could be conceived of as providing a space for people. But if you want to do it with integrity and thoughtfulness, and the part that I'd underscore is creativity, notice how important that becomes. Thank you for sharing, Yev. All right, so I just want to remind us that this little quadrant right here, we often suck at this stuff. And if you are at all like me, it's very easy for us to put ourselves on a hamster wheel and to be busy but not effective. And I would ask you to begin to audit yourself. Now, I'm going to go through a couple of things that we're going to do, that I'm going to ask you to do to audit. One is, how often do you talk about yourself being busy? This was a cancer for me. I always talked about being busy because it gave me a sense of importance. So my friends would ask, hey, what are you doing? And the reality is, I'm excited about what I'm doing, so I'm always doing a lot of things. But I was wondering if at the end of the day, when I had told 3 or 4 different friends that said passively, how are you doing? That my answer, busy, didn't actually correspond with progress toward the thing that I had imagined for myself. And so if that's you, I'm not here to judge, because I was that person. And yet I find that auditing that as an answer, now I do everything I can not to say the word busy, despite having a very full schedule. I just think that busy is a sort of a toxic mindset. So I audited that for myself. And what I would invite you to do as an exercise, I would invite you this week, audit your time. I have an interesting line. Warren Buffett, he said, my calendar is not free because I'm a billionaire. I'm a billionaire because I've made my calendar open. Process that for a second. Warren Buffett, I'm not free because I'm rich. I'm rich because I made time for what mattered. And that's not to say that over time you're not going to get a more full schedule, because my belief is that if you get good at identifying things that really matter for you toward this goal that we have for ourselves, toward the success, the fulfillment that we want for ourselves, that we become ruthless in the best way of choosing friends, spending time, self-talk. These are all things that when we can assemble them, they will radically accelerate our path towards success and fulfillment. And notice that I'm almost always will tie success and fulfillment together, because success without fulfillment is hell, and fulfillment, if you can achieve it, just, what is it? Thich Nhat Hanh could probably achieve that just with enlightenment. But a lot of people, I like to pair fulfillment, what make you fulfilled. So I want you to audit being busy or not. I want you to audit your time. This is a very hard thing, and I want you to do it in 15 to 30-minute increments. Just track what you have done over the course of this week. I did it for 2 weeks, and I did it in 30-minute increments, and I have help with this because of someone who manages my schedule, and that's a luxury. I realize that. But even if you just went back over the course of the last 3 days, or over the course of the next 3 or 4 days, you track your time, I think you'll find it interesting. Here's a kicker. If you do this with your finances, if you want to understand what your priority is, and you look back and you can see what your time looks like and see where you spend your money, that will be the most revelatory aspect of your priorities. And this can be painful. It was very painful for me. I'll give you another example for me, so that I'm the vulnerable one and not required that we all turn ourselves inside out to 3,000 strangers. I did this with business travel. And I mean, this is pre-COVID. I audited, and I was going back and forth between the 2 locations in Seattle and San Francisco for Creative Live. And I was on usually to New York, LA, or London, where we have investors and folks that are very close to the business, and for whom with whom I work very closely. And I found that was eating up an extra, probably unnecessary travel, was eating up another 10 to 15 hours per week. 10 to 15 hours, that's like 2 days of productivity, where I might be able to tell myself that, hey, if I'm walking down the bridgeway to get on the plane, I can be texting. And when I'm sitting there waiting to take off, I can be taking notes, or when I'm like, but the reality is that wasn't true. So audit your time, audit your finances. 2 other things before we move on to the third topic. Again, if the first topic is reminding you that consistent creative practice, consistency is the most important thing. Prioritizing the work, which is what we're doing in auditing right now. And the third one is going to be getting to making. But 2 things before we jump into the getting to making. I do not want the results of these surveys that you do to stop you from taking action. I do not want you to believe that you need the perfect set of circumstances in order to be successful. I do not want you to believe, now this may sound like a contradiction, right? I just do not want you to believe that wherever you are right now that you cannot start. If you go back to the beginning of the book, it says this is one of the most powerful things that creators who are successful know, is just start. I'm asking you to do these audits. I'm asking you to highlight areas where you might not be truthful with yourself, not intentionally, but as a means to reveal lots of opportunity. Because I'm going to assume that you are taking action. I'm going to assume that you're doing something instead of nothing. And it's my hope that when I pull some of these other audits back, the time audit, the money audit, that you will reveal to yourself how much more juice you have to contribute to the things that are the most important in your life. And this is true whether it's a project, or this is true if the project is your life. Okay. My Zoom just randomly expanded. It keeps covering up my nose. 1 second, y'all. All right. So that last little point there, to me, this is putting you in a position to savagely guard your goals. Savagely guard them. Because if you do not, who will? If you don't protect the things that you want in this life, if you don't orient yourself toward them, if you don't create them, who will? Savagely guard your dreams. All right, last topic. I'm a few minutes long, and then we're going to go to the worldwide Q&A, both via the chat on Facebook, Creative Live TV, the class page, YouTube, Facebook, and of course here in the Zoom call for the folks that are in the text community. Topic 3, stop fiddling and start making. Anybody, show of hands in the Zoom call, or raise your hand in a chat if you send me an emoji. Anybody believe that the thing that they're making is not the quality that they want to be making it? This is probably, go back to J.D. Smith. He said, I realized that there's this gap. Heather and Ed, J.D., Audrey, Amanda, I think everyone's hands up. Everyone that I can see in the Zoom call. Rob's got it figured out. Rob Ziegler has got it figured out. Yep. He's 50%. He's going to give me one of these. Trenda, thanks for raising your hand. This is true unless you have mastered something, unless you have mastered the craft that you are envisioning for yourself, for example. So most people should be raising their hand. It's like, this is the part that, this is my belief, this is why we are here. And if you find yourself, well, let me ask a different question. Are you giving yourself deadlines? Are you creating a plan for your creative routine or not? Are you creating the space and the time physically and mentally that you need in order to do the things that you want to do? Now, no is a fine answer because that's why you're here. But if and if that's the case, then that is a piece of your homework this week is to go create a plan. And what I'd also ask is, what are you doing to be accountable to yourself? Is there something that you can do in this group? I understand there's a subreddit that's been formed. Is that right? I think Nasa and Kate Dessa, you can remind us, or maybe throw that in the comments or the chat here. I think it's a subreddit / creative calling or something like that. I don't remember. I'm not here to prescribe your accountability, but if there's someone that you are peers with in this community, if there's someone that is a friend, I recommend this not be your partner or spouse. I recommend this not be a family member. I recommend this is someone who has a similar endeavor to yours. If you find yourself in a community with a trade organization or whatnot. Without being prescriptive, though, this accountability is it's very good medicine. This is part of what separates pros from amateurs, right? The ability to just show up. And, there's that Chuck Close quote that I've got in there, talks about everyone else looks for inspiration to strike. And, that's not the relationship that most pros have with creativity. They just sit down and they do the work. Again, go back to Jeanette, who set us up so beautifully today with some of her comments. Shitty first drafts are great. If you've read the book Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, she encourages shitty first drafts. I can't. If you guys had seen the first draft of this thing, I don't think you'd have been very happy with it. And the funny thing is, it was revised somewhere on the order to between 10 and 20 times each chapter. Different carnations, reincarnations, shifting, cutting, trimming, adding back in, completely reworking. Don't be afraid of shitty first drafts. You've also probably remember the anecdote in the book about the ceramics class that was in part great. Half of them were graded on the number of things that they did, the volume of projects that they did, and the other was judged on one thing. And the results at the end of the semester were not surprising. Not only did the group that was graded by volume, not only did they make more work, but they made better work, and they made more better work. And that's not a surprise, right? When you think about it, this is the concept of shitty first drafts. This is a concept of practice. This is a concept of repetition of skill. A poor craftswoman blames her tools. A great craftsperson does the work over and over and over and over and lets other people judge whether it's good or bad. The punchline to that last chapter that I asked you to read is, give yourself permission to suck. This is one of the most simple but boldest pieces of advice I think you can take away today. Is we all think we suck. I stepped into the CEO role at Creative Live with never having run a company more than like 10 people. I was crappy the first go around. I handed the reins to somebody else, went and did some other stuff, prepared myself, planned, worked at it, came back, was a lot better. But I had to invest the time. I had to acknowledge that I sucked, be okay with the sucking, and put in the work. This was true with my photography. This was true with me as a leader at Creative Live. And I'm guessing that this is true for you. What is the hard part is being truthful about it. And secondarily, not getting down about it. Because as soon as we recognize this creative gap, most of us throw our hands up. But that's the thing that differentiates most people from you. If you have chosen the area that you care deeply about and that you want for this one precious life, whether it's a project or your life, then you've got time. You've got time just to continue putting one foot in front of another, establishing this mindset with your daily habits as a path to your goals. All right. Action steps and or tools that I want you to take away from this. And I'm going to do a closing read and get to questions since we're 8 minutes long. I want to know, what have you quit? What have you quit that you knew you weren't supposed to do? What have you quit that you knew you were not supposed to be doing? Because I believe that quitting is a very powerful thing. I would like you to write some things down, because that to me is actually an understanding of priorities. That is you looking back and saying, you know what, I have taken action. I dropped out of medical school, bailed on a career in professional soccer, dropped out of a PhD to become a photographer. Those were the hardest 3 things I've ever had to quit. Those were in the face of my parents hating me. And remember, I'm born white, male, middle class in America in the 70s, like every advantage. And still, I looked at quitting as some of the hardest things I've done. So if you're looking for courage to understand that you're capable of making these big changes, look back at things that you quit, that people, relationships that you quit that weren't working for you, jobs that you quit where your boss was a jerk, paths that you didn't want to go down that the world was forcing you down, and you actually decided to quit those things. I hope that that will help you. All right, then. What have you quit? What are some things that you love that you can do more of today? And if I want to fly an airplane more than I am because I want my pilot's license and I want to own a little aircraft company that flies around the Bahamas, great. If you don't have an airplane, or you don't have access to an airplane, try not to think about that right now if you don't have access to it. What are some things that you love right now that you can do more of today? Make a list of those things. What are your creativity boosters and zappers? Make a list of these things. These are things that help me. These are things that drain me. Audit out this creative junk food. Audit out, watching too much Netflix. Audit out news. Audit out things that don't serve you. Don't forget, I want you to conduct this time audit. Ideally, you do it for a week or 2. But I don't care if you do it for 3 or 4 days, it'll still reveal a lot. Just you have to do it some weekend days and some weekdays. Don't just do it for a day, because then you're going to be able to skew the results. What is the smallest thing that you can do to get you closer to your goal? This is the thing for those of you who didn't do the exercise. In 24 hours, I want you to create something that gets you one step closer to your goal, one step better as a drafts person, one step better as a Photoshop illustrator, one step better as an entrepreneur. You can research what it means to start a business license or to open a business license. You can actually do the work. It's probably 45 minutes. What's one thing, a smallest effective dose that you can do to get you close to that? And then the follow on for that I've asked you to do over the next 24 hours is, how can you set aside that 30 minutes, 60 minutes on some regular schedule that you can keep? Don't set it up for 2 hours, 7 days a week, because you're not going to be able to be successful. Give yourself a reason to pat yourself on the back. Build the calendar that you need for your creative work. Set a plan. Again, Chuck Close sat down and did the work every day. Andy Warhol, while other people are judging your work, all you're doing is making more. And while they're judging, you're making. Be accountable. All right. I'm going to get to page 99 for the closing read today. And then I'm going to get through a set of reminders and take questions for 20 minutes. 99 is the closing read, page 99. Your mindset matters most. As the philosopher and Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. As true today as in Roman times, the state of your mind, your body, and your spirit is the direct result of the decisions you've made in your life up to this point. Physical health, cognitive performance, happiness, well-being, these are driven entirely by our beliefs and our behaviors. Of course, there are so many things, sorry, small divergence. Of course, there are so many things that you didn't choose in your life, but you have to choose how you respond to those things. Day after day, choosing exercise or Netflix, all-nighters or sleep, eating clean or binging on mint chocolate chip ice cream, as I love to do. All these decisions, they create our days, and our days create our lives as a whole. Each of us faces all kinds of unique challenges, whether mental, physical, otherwise. We all have unique challenges, but no matter what hand you've been dealt, your mindset gives you a massive difference. To achieve a new mindset and transform your life, you've got to believe two things. One, your situation, whatever it is changeable for the better. And two, you are capable of making that change. I think that's why you're here. Just a reminder on page 103, you are a creative person. The world is abundant and full of possibility. Your situation can always be changed. You can use your creativity to create the change you seek. Creativity is natural and healthy, but requires practice. And creativity is the ultimate personal power. All right. Reminder before we go into questions, I want to say thanks again for joining for this little creative sesh here, 14 minutes long. I've been able to keep it to an hour for the previous sessions, but I'll apologize. I think the new Zoom thing expanded my scope a little bit for the day. Just a reminder about those things. Again, creativity zappers, boosters, do an audit, build a calendar, set some session plans. How do you want to do and create, and prepare next week for the execute section of the book. That's part 3, the 4th week that we'll be together. This is doing the work that we have designed and we have set out for ourselves today. So if you would like to be in the Zoom call next week, we're going to have another call for first come, first serve. And the way you do that is, again, this is the only place in this community here that I've shared my phone number, 206-309-5177. There's a little automation you need to set. When you get that, you need to send me a text, and I think there's a confirmation that goes back to you, but then it's actually me doing the best. And you can imagine, there's 3,800 people in this class. So I do my best to get back, and sometimes I will sit there for like 2 hours and just text people straight, and I get great pleasure out of it. So I would love to have that relationship with you. If you haven't reviewed the book, it would mean the world to me. Wherever you bought it, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any indie store, iBooks, Apple Books, whatever they call it now, that would be really helpful. I made an ask earlier, and I think we got 10. I'll share. I was kind of bummed about that. I was hoping we can get a few more. But so with that said, I hope that you will be further along toward designing the living life or vision that you have for yourself. I know that lots of questions are going to come up. I think this is one of the, it's easier to dream big once you've had someone like me to sort of shake you out of it for a second. Designing a plan to get there. The fact that it's not only a list of things, of skills that you need, is really a shock to some people. So this week could be tough as you're digging into this. But just know that I'm here. This community of 3,800 people is here. There's the subreddit that we can put in the comments if you would. My team, throw that in the comments. Marcia's saying, I just got the book on Thursday. I'm way behind. Go ahead and get up to speed. Eddie says she'll review the book on Amazon. Thank you much. All right, so we're going to go to questions. I've been disproportionately favoring some of the folks in the Zoom video chat, understandably, but I would love to go to comments in the text chat. If you're on one of those other formats first, I'll take that question, and then those of you in the Zoom will blow through a handful of these. And I promised I would do at least 20 minutes of Q&A, which is I'm more than happy to do. All right, so questions coming in from the chat world. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking at the stuff that I'm getting on from my team. Refreshing here. Oh man, I got a spinning wheel of death on my chat window, of course. All right, since there's no spinning wheel of death in my Zoom call, I'm going to go back. Who's got a question for me in the Zoom universe? Hands up. Okay. Rob, I talked a little trash to Rob earlier, so I'm going to go to Rob. Is it Ziegler or Ziegler?
Hey, it's Ziegler.
Ziegler. Hey, what's
Yeah.
up, Rob? I hope you
Hey.
didn't take my calling you out as that was supportive, because you were someone who hadn't struggled. So anyway,
Yeah,
get
well,
away with your question. I'm here for you, bud.
You know, it's funny because I was doing my creative outlet is YouTube videos, and just the first few chapters of your book really is what made me stop getting hooked on the quality of it and just producing it and getting them out there. So I'm actually been very happy with what I produced since just reading the first few chapters. I just stopped getting hung up on that. So I'm not a master, never will be. I know I'm only going to get better, but I'm learning to, as a starter planner, get over that hump and just get the stuff out there, get it published, and then, you know, keep moving up. So that's kind of where I was going with that.
It's huge.
But
good.
The other thing I was going to ask you was, in these latest chapters, it's like you were, because I have the Audible book, right? So it's like you were sitting across from me, just calling me on my BS, which was great. And you talk about perpetually planning, and you talk about getting stuck on the work before the work. And I was just wondering, in your creative process, maybe when you were doing the book or something else in your life, can you give us an example of when you got stuck doing the work before the work, and then what made you realize that you were getting stuck on that, and how you moved past that?
All right. Yeah. I don't know how much time you got, but I could give you about 100 examples. And that's one of the things about doing this experience right here. And I tried to write the book from this vantage point is, and I think I've said this on the book tour and a couple of other podcasts that I've been on, is I hate this idea of perfection, because it keeps us from so much. It keeps us from so much joy. It creates so much suffering. If you can understand the Buddhist point of view, you know, pain is not optional. Suffering is optional. And so much suffering happens. And, you know, whether it's with the book, you know, I hate things that don't portray honesty. Like most business books say, great, if you've never created a problem in your business and you can continue doing all of the things that you need to do perfectly, then you're going to have a perfect business. Have a good day. You know, thanks for the $15.99. That doesn't look like anything that I've experienced. And so, you know, this is a messy, non-linear bunch of work trying to figure this out. And so I came at the book trying to portray that. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing it here, and why I've got 100 of these. I will use the meta example of the book, right? So the idea of a book is very romantic, and I resisted it for a long time, because remember, writing is not my primary vehicle. Although I've written 1,000 blog posts and had 1 million monthly readers for a very, very long time, I never really saw myself as a writer. I developed my ability to write through repetition on the blog and in graduate school as in the PhD program that I quit, which I was happy to share with you earlier. And yet, when it came time to actually doing the work of the book, even the idea of, I had romanticized the writing process. And there was a part of me that I did all of the other stuff. I got the book deal, worked closely with my agent, wrote a nice proposal. And then there was a lag time, I would say 3-month lag time. And to be fair, like, I have a ton of support. My wife, Kate, who I think is on the call somewhere, is an amazing editor. I had, you know, all kinds of, that's part of what when you get a major publishing deal, they build a support network. You have writing support, editing support, research support, you know, and these are all people that I had paid in order to, whether through lots of different mechanisms. And yet there was probably a 3-month lag to get started. And I had an outline. I had done the work to get the book deal. I knew where I wanted to go. I'd assembled the team. The team was doing things, basically things that, like, I would just send research tasks, but actually sitting down and writing was very, very hard for me. And what was hard for me was because I judged the things that came out when I sat down to type them. Is this of the quality that I want, that I'm comparing myself with what I know is possible for me and what I know it takes to have a best-selling book out in the world and truly make an impact? And the gap was massive. And it was because I was judging my first draft. And then I read Anne Lamont's Bird by Bird and recognized this concept of shitty first drafts, which is because it's why it's littered throughout the thing. And it it ultimately got to a point of near panic for the rest of my team and I. We're like, wait a minute, there's not enough time left to be continuing at the pace that we are in order to get a world-class book created. And that, you know, again, going back to Jeanette, who set us up very nicely early on in this call, I just carved out time every morning. And I'm a morning person, but I'm not a 4:30 a.m.er. And I started setting an alarm, and I made a series of videos every day or every other day, or when I remembered to bring my phone downstairs with me, of these videos. And they are horrifying and hilarious. And aside from, you know, my hair is a hilarity in its own bit, but I just made these videos of like, oh my God, what am I doing? I suck. And if you remember that chart in the book, which is the creative project, excitement, enthusiasm, and then, oh my God, what am I doing? Oh my God, this sucks. Oh my God, I suck. I'm never getting out of this. And then, you know, here I am 9 months later where I've been writing every day. And you know what? This is going to be okay. You know what? This is going to be good. You know what? I think this can be world class. And the last 4 weeks before I turned in the final draft of the book, so much came together that I didn't see a year before, that I would never have been able to get there had I not done the work. Now, I hate to tell you this, but like writing a book is way heavier of a lift than I've ever wanted. I'm working, like, I'm going to write for the rest of my life because it helps me organize my thoughts, especially as a visual artist. So it's never going to go away as a problem. But I'm here to tell you that I struggle a lot with the work because, and here's the other thing that I think you probably pulled this out of the book if you've read the whole thing and you're going back now, is that when you are in a position where you are just starting and you haven't created success for yourself or the success you dream of, in theory, you've got nothing to lose, right? No one expects this of you, and it should be the most freedom. And if you're in that position right now, you're like, oh my God, I'm still stuck and I don't have any pressure. No one knows that I want to be, a renowned chef, maybe like Yev does, or I want to convene people and make videos that have, that have profound impact in changing people's lives, whatever your endeavor is. The reality is that after you achieve some success, you create some of the success that you want, then you actually have something to lose. So the thought that it gets easier is fiction, right? And I'm sitting here right now, like, what's the next one going to be? Damn. So the fact that it never gets easy might be a slight overstatement, because what you get used to is you get used to the pressure. You get used to acknowledging you suck. And if you go through a few cycles of that, you can actually, it's also a muscle. So the reality is now when I put out a shitty first draft, I'm like, okay, that's one of those shitty first drafts. And I'm going to pick it up again tomorrow. I'm going to do it again. But if, Rob, what you're looking for is a reassurance, I've got an infinity number of stories to share about sucking. Doing the work, there's no substitute for it. Repetition is not only the mother of invention, but it's required. Anything that you've seen in the world, whether it's the light that's lighting me right now, this mic, even the smoothie, they had to figure out what things went well together through trial and error. The only thing that will get you there is doing the work. Intellect is subservient to action. Action is what matters. All right, I'm going to go to the comments here, and then we're going to go back. Thanks, Rob. Let's see. What's the best way? This is from Marcia. What's the best way to start sharing your work and connecting with others? Well, here's the deal. Sharing your work requires connection to some social platforms, and that's it. That's not the only way. Maybe that's not even the best way, but it's a way. And if this is about doing the work, then I would encourage you to start to share the work that you make, because it is a muscle that you are developing. If you're wondering how to build community, this is the best example that I can point to. Again, there's a lot of meta that goes on in this space, in this creative headspace.